The village of Saint-Laurent lay nestled in the rolling hills of southern France, its cobblestone streets winding between quaint stone houses adorned with colorful flower boxes. The air was crisp with the scent of autumn leaves, and the golden light of the setting sun cast a warm glow over the landscape. Yet, for 12-year-old Émile, the beauty of his surroundings felt muted and distant, overshadowed by a profound sense of loss. It had been just a month since his mother, Claire, had passed away after a long battle with illness. The world around him continued to spin, but Émile felt as if he were trapped in a moment frozen in time, a moment defined by grief and heartache. Each day was a struggle to navigate through the fog that enveloped him, and he often found himself retreating into silence, unable to express the depth of his sorrow. On this particular evening, Émile stood at the edge of the village cemetery, staring at the small grave marked by a simple headstone. The inscription read, "Claire Dubois, beloved mother and friend." The words felt heavy in his heart as he knelt beside it, brushing away fallen leaves that had gathered on the ground. "Mom," he whispered, his voice barely audible above the gentle rustle of the trees. "I miss you so much." Tears welled in his eyes as he traced his fingers over the engraved letters, wishing desperately that he could turn back time and relive just one more day with her. Memories flooded his mind, her laughter ringing through their home, her warm hugs that made everything feel right in the world, and the way she would sit with him at night, reading stories until he fell asleep. Those moments felt like fragments of a dream now lost to him, leaving behind an aching void that seemed impossible to fill. Émile glanced around the cemetery, where other families gathered to remember their loved ones. He felt like an outsider among them, an island of solitude amidst a sea of shared grief. His friends from school had tried to reach out, but their words felt hollow. They couldn't possibly understand what he was going through. They laughed and played while he struggled to find joy in anything. "Why did you have to leave me?" he asked aloud, his voice trembling with emotion. "I don't know how to do this without you." The weight of those words hung heavy in the air as he fought back sobs. As darkness began to settle over Saint-Laurent, Émile took a deep breath and wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. He knew he should head home. Henri, his father, would be waiting for him. But the thought of returning to their quiet house filled him with dread. Since Claire's passing, their home had become a shell of its former self, filled with echoes of laughter but now haunted by silence. With one last glance at his mother's grave, Émile stood up slowly and turned away, feeling an emptiness inside that seemed to grow with each step he took toward home. He walked along the cobbled path leading back to their house at the edge of the village, where memories lingered like shadows in every corner. As he entered through the front door, a chill ran down his spine. The house felt cold and unwelcoming. It was as if it were mourning alongside him. Henri was sitting at the kitchen table, staring blankly at a half-finished meal, a plate of uneaten pasta growing cold before him. "Émile," Henri said softly without looking up. "You're back." "Yeah," Émile replied quietly as he shuffled into the room. He could see how tired and worn out his father looked. Grief had taken its toll on both of them in different ways. Did you visit your mother?" Henri asked hesitantly. Émile nodded but didn't elaborate. He couldn't find the words to express what he felt, how visiting her grave brought both comfort and pain all at once. Henri sighed heavily and finally looked up at Émile. "I know this is hard for you," he said gently. "It's hard for me too. I just miss her," Émile admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "I do too," Henri replied, running a hand through his hair in frustration. "I wish things were different." Silence fell between them like an impenetrable wall, two grieving souls unable to reach one another through their shared pain. Émile felt tears prick at his eyes again but quickly blinked them away. He didn't want to break down in front of his father. "I'm going to my room," Émile said finally, turning away from the table before Henri could respond. As he climbed up the stairs to his room, a small space filled with books and drawings. He closed the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment, letting out a shaky breath. The familiar surroundings offered little comfort. Instead, they served as reminders of what had been lost. Sitting on his bed, Émile picked up a sketchbook filled with drawings of happier times, his mother smiling beside him during picnics in the park or laughing as they baked cookies together on rainy afternoons. Each image tugged at his heartstrings as memories flooded back, moments that now felt painfully out of reach. He opened to a blank page and picked up a pencil, hoping that pouring out his feelings onto paper might ease some of the heaviness inside him. He began to draw, a simple image at first, but soon found himself lost in memories as each stroke brought forth emotions that had been buried deep within him. But even as he sketched away tears that threatened to spill over again, he couldn't shake off an overwhelming sense of longing for connection, the desire for something more than just memories, something that could bridge this chasm between life and loss. As night fell outside and shadows danced across his walls, the weight of grief settled heavily upon Emile once more, but within that darkness flickered a small ember of hope waiting patiently for its moment to shine. The days following Emile's visit to his mother's grave blurred together, each one feeling like a heavy stone added to the weight he carried in his heart. School was particularly challenging. The laughter and chatter of his classmates felt like a distant echo from another world. Emile often found himself lost in thought, staring out the window as the seasons changed outside, while inside, he felt stuck in a perpetual winter. At lunch, he sat alone at a corner table, pushing his food around on his plate. His friends, Julian, Sophie, and Clara, tried to engage him in conversation, but their words felt like they were coming from underwater, muffled and distorted. He could see their concern reflected in their eyes, but he didn't know how to reach out or explain the storm brewing inside him. "Emile," Julian said cautiously one day, breaking through the silence that had settled over them. "Do you want to join us for soccer practice after school? It might be fun." Emile looked up, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I don't think so," he replied softly. "I'm not really in the mood." Sophie reached across the table, her hand resting gently on his arm. "You don't have to pretend with us," she said. "We're here for you." "I know," Emile said, feeling a lump form in his throat. I don't know how to be okay right now." The bell rang, signaling the end of lunch, and Emile stood up quickly, eager to escape the weight of their concern. He walked away from the table without looking back, feeling both grateful for their friendship and overwhelmed by the pressure to act normal. As he trudged through the afternoon classes, Emile's mind drifted back to memories of his mother, her laughter ringing in his ears like a haunting melody. She had always encouraged him to pursue his passions, whether it was drawing or exploring nature. But now those passions felt distant and unattainable. When school finally ended, Emile walked home slowly, taking a longer route through the village to avoid facing Henri and the silence that awaited him at home. Each step felt heavy as he navigated familiar streets lined with blooming flowers and cheerful chatter from neighbors who greeted him with warm smiles. "Bonjour, Emile," called out Madame Lefebvre, the baker who always had a kind word for him. "How are you today?" "Fine," he replied automatically, forcing a smile before continuing on his way. Inside, he felt anything but fine. He felt like a ghost drifting through life without purpose. Once home, Emile entered through the front door and was greeted by an unsettling quietness that enveloped him like a thick fog. Henri was sitting at the kitchen table again, staring blankly at an open newspaper as if it held all the answers to life's questions. "Hey," Emile said softly as he hung up his coat. "Hey," Henri replied without looking up. The weariness in his voice echoed Emile's own feelings of exhaustion. "Did you eat?" Emile asked hesitantly. Henri shook his head slowly. "Not yet." Emile moved into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator door, searching for something simple to prepare, a sandwich or perhaps some leftover soup. As he rummaged through the shelves, he couldn't shake off the feeling that they were both just going through the motions of living without truly engaging with one another. After preparing a quick meal for himself and setting aside some soup for Henri, Emile sat down at the table across from his father. They ate in silence, punctuated only by the sound of utensils clinking against plates, a stark contrast to the lively conversations they used to share over dinner. "Emile," Henri finally said after a long pause, looking up from his bowl. "I know things are hard right now, for both of us." He sighed heavily as if carrying an invisible burden on his shoulders. "I just want you to know that it's okay to feel sad." Emile nodded but didn't respond. Words felt inadequate in that moment. Instead, he focused on pushing food around on his plate again. "I miss her too," Henri continued gently. "Every day feels different without Claire." The mention of her name sent a fresh wave of pain crashing over Emile. He wanted to scream that it wasn't fair, that they were both suffering but couldn't seem to connect through their shared grief. Instead, He forced himself to nod again while swallowing hard against tears that threatened to spill over. After dinner, Emile retreated to his room once more, the only place where he felt safe enough to let his emotions flow freely. He sat on his bed and picked up his sketchbook again, flipping through pages filled with drawings that captured moments frozen in time, his mother smiling brightly as she held him close during summer picnics or running through fields of wildflowers together. But tonight was different. Tonight he felt an overwhelming urge to express not just happiness but also sorrow, the weight of loss that had settled deep within him since she had gone. With each stroke of pencil against paper, Emile poured out everything, the sadness and longing that had been bottled up inside him for far too long. He drew images of himself standing alone under dark clouds while vibrant flowers bloomed around him, a juxtaposition of grief amidst beauty. As tears streamed down his face onto the page below, he realized how cathartic this release was, how drawing allowed him to confront feelings he had kept hidden away for so long. Finally exhausted from both emotion and effort, Emile closed his sketchbook and lay back against his pillow, staring up at the ceiling as darkness enveloped him once more. In that stillness, a thought flickered within him. Perhaps there was a way forward, not just through art but also by finding connection once again, by reaching out beyond this wall built from grief toward those who cared about him still. As sleep began to take hold, he whispered into the quiet room, "Mom, I wish you were here." And though there was no answer, he felt a glimmer of hope ignite within, a small spark reminding him that even amidst darkness, love could still shine brightly if only given space to grow. The next morning, Emile awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through his window. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and sat up, feeling a lingering heaviness in his heart. The memories of the previous day, the weight of silence at home, the overwhelming sadness, still clung to him like a shadow. But today felt different. There was a flicker of determination within him, a desire to find something that could help him navigate his grief. After breakfast, he decided to explore the attic of their home. It had been a long time since he ventured up there, and he remembered how his mother used to take him on adventures through the dusty boxes filled with forgotten treasures. The attic was a place of wonder, a realm where stories from the past came alive. Climbing up the narrow staircase, Emile pushed open the creaky door and stepped into the dimly lit space. Dust motes danced in the shafts of light that streamed through small windows, illuminating stacks of old boxes and furniture draped in white sheets. The air was thick with the scent of aged wood and nostalgia. As he began to sift through the boxes, memories flooded back, his mother's laughter as they unearthed old toys or her gentle guidance as she shared stories about each item they discovered. With each box he opened, he felt a pang of longing for those moments they had shared. "Mom," he whispered softly, feeling a mix of sadness and warmth as he thought about her. "I wish you were here." He continued rummaging through the attic until he stumbled upon a small wooden chest tucked away in a corner. It was intricately carved with swirling patterns, and despite the dust that covered it, it seemed to radiate a sense of significance. Curiosity piqued, Emile knelt down and opened the chest. Inside lay an assortment of items. Old photographs, letters tied with faded ribbons, and trinkets that sparkled in the dim light. But what caught his eye was a delicate crystal pendant nestled at the bottom of the chest. It shimmered with hues of blue and green, catching the light in a way that made it seem almost alive. Emile picked it up carefully, feeling its cool surface against his palm. He remembered seeing this pendant before. His mother had worn it on special occasions. It had always seemed magical to him, a piece that held stories and secrets waiting to be uncovered. As he held it up to the light, Emile noticed an inscription on the back, "Love transcends all." The words resonated deep within him, stirring emotions he had kept locked away. For a moment, he felt as if his mother were right there beside him, encouraging him to embrace this gift. With newfound determination, Emile decided to wear the pendant around his neck. He fastened it securely and felt an immediate sense of comfort wash over him, as if it were a link connecting him to his mother's spirit. Leaving the attic behind, Emile made his way downstairs. Henri was sitting at the kitchen table again, but this time there was something different in Emile's heart, an urge to share what he had found. "Dad," Emile said as he entered the kitchen. "Look what I found in the attic." Henri looked up from his newspaper, curiosity sparking in his eyes. "What is it?" Emile held out the pendant for his father to see. "It belonged to Mom. I think it's special." Henry's expression softened as he took in the sight of the pendant glistening in Emil's hand. "Your mother loved that piece," he said quietly. "She always said it reminded her of our love. I feel like it can help me remember her," Emil replied earnestly. "Maybe it can help us both." Henri nodded slowly, a mixture of pride and sadness crossing his face. "That's a beautiful thought," he said softly. "Your mother would be proud of you for finding it." Emil smiled at his father's words but felt an ache in his heart for all that remained unspoken between them. "Can we talk about her more?" he asked hesitantly. "I want to remember everything." Henri looked taken aback for a moment but then nodded slowly. "Of course," he said, setting aside his newspaper as if readying himself for an important conversation. They spent the morning sharing stories about Claire, her love for gardening, her passion for cooking, and how she would always dance around the kitchen while preparing meals as if no one were watching. Laughter bubbled between them like sunlight breaking through clouds after a storm. As they reminisced about Claire's quirky habits and favorite recipes, Emil felt a warmth spreading through him, a sense that perhaps they could find solace together amidst their shared grief. Later that afternoon, Emil decided to take a walk around their neighborhood wearing the pendant close to his heart. The sun shone brightly overhead as he strolled along familiar paths lined with trees shedding their autumn leaves, a tapestry of golds and reds carpeting the ground beneath him. With each step he took, he felt lighter. Memories flooded back not just from their conversations but also from moments spent exploring these very streets with his mother by his side, her laughter echoing in his ears like music carried on the wind. As he reached Le Jardin des Fleurs, a small park filled with blooming flowers and laughter from children playing nearby, Emil paused for a moment to breathe in deeply, the fragrance reminding him so vividly of her love for nature. Sitting on a bench beneath an old oak tree, he closed his eyes and let himself imagine her presence beside him once more, her gentle voice guiding him through life's uncertainties while reminding him that love never truly fades away, it transforms into something beautiful that can be carried forward. In that moment, Emil made a silent promise. He would honor her memory not just by holding on to grief but by embracing life fully while keeping her spirit alive within him always. As dusk began to settle over Saint Laurent, the sky painted with hues of purple and gold, Emil knew deep down that this was just the beginning of discovering how love could transcend even death, how it could guide him toward healing while reminding him that every moment mattered. That night, Emil lay in bed clutching the crystal pendant. The cool surface felt comforting against his skin, a tangible reminder of his mother's love. He stared at the ceiling, thoughts swirling in his mind like leaves caught in a gentle breeze. He had shared stories with his father and found a flicker of connection, but deep down, he still longed for more, a way to feel his mother's presence again. The idea of making a wish began to take root in his heart, fueled by the inscription on the pendant, "Love transcends all." What if I could really reach her? He whispered to himself, feeling a mix of hope and apprehension. The stories his mother used to tell him about magic and the power of love echoed in his mind. Perhaps there was something to it after all. Emil sat up suddenly, determination coursing through him. He needed to try. He recalled how his mother would often say that wishes made from the heart could sometimes come true if one truly believed. With newfound resolve, he took a deep breath and closed his eyes tightly, holding the pendant close. "Mom," he whispered into the stillness of his room. "I wish you could come back to me. I want to see you again." As he spoke those words, a warm sensation enveloped him, wrapping around him like a soft blanket. Emil could almost hear her laughter echoing in the distance, urging him to believe in the possibility of magic. "Please," he continued, pouring every ounce of longing into his words. "I miss you so much. I want to feel your love again." The air around him began to shimmer faintly, and Emil felt a rush of energy coursing through him as if something extraordinary were about to happen. He opened his eyes just as a soft glow filled the room, a gentle light that seemed to pulse with warmth and familiarity. Suddenly, he was no longer alone. Before him stood a figure bathed in soft light, radiant and ethereal. Emil's breath caught in his throat as he recognized the familiar features of his mother, her kind smile and sparkling eyes that had always held so much love. "Emil," she said softly, her voice like music that wrapped around him. "My sweet boy, Mom," he gasped, scrambling out of bed and rushing toward her. He felt an overwhelming surge of joy mixed with disbelief as he reached out to touch her. She was real, warm and vibrant, just as he remembered. "I've missed you so much," Emil cried, tears streaming down his cheeks as he embraced her tightly. It felt as though time had folded in on itself, bringing them together once more. "I've missed you too," Claire replied gently, holding him close. "But remember, love never truly leaves us, it transforms into something beautiful." Emil pulled back slightly to look into her eyes, those familiar pools of warmth that had always made him feel safe. "How is this happening?" he asked breathlessly. "I came because you wished for me," she explained softly. "Your heart called out for me, and I could not resist answering." "But how long can you stay?" Emil asked urgently, fear creeping into his heart at the thought of losing her again. "I cannot stay long," Claire said gently, brushing a hand through his hair as she had done countless times before. "But I am here now, let us make the most of this moment." With that reassurance, Emil felt a wave of comfort wash over him. They spent what felt like hours talking, sharing stories and laughter as they had done before. Claire told him about the beauty she saw from where she was, a place filled with light and love where pain no longer existed. "Mom," Emil said hesitantly after a while, "I don't want you to go." "I know," she replied softly, her expression filled with understanding. "But you must remember that I will always be with you, in your heart and in your memories." The thought brought both comfort and sadness. He wanted nothing more than for her to stay by his side forever. "Can't we do something magical together?" Emil asked suddenly, inspired by their shared love for adventure. Claire smiled brightly at his suggestion. "What do you have in mind?" Emil thought for a moment before an idea sparked within him. "Let's go to our favorite spot, the meadow where we used to pick flowers together." With a knowing nod from Claire, they found themselves transported instantly to the sunlit meadow that had once been their sanctuary, a place filled with blooming wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. Emil laughed with delight as they ran through the field together, his heart soaring with joy as they twirled among the flowers just like old times. The colors seemed brighter here, everything was alive with vibrancy and warmth. "Look at all these flowers," he exclaimed breathlessly as they stopped amidst a sea of blossoms. "It's just like I remember." Claire knelt down beside him and began picking flowers, daisies and poppies, her fingers moving gracefully through petals like whispers carried on the wind. "Let's make crowns," she suggested playfully. As they wove flowers together into crowns adorned with nature's beauty, Emil felt an overwhelming sense of happiness wash over him. This was what he had longed for, a moment frozen in time where love transcended all boundaries. When their crowns were complete, Claire placed one atop Emil's head, and laughed joyfully at how it suited him perfectly. "You look just like a prince," she teased playfully. "And you're my queen," Emil replied with a grin that lit up his face. They spent what felt like hours playing in the meadow, laughing and dancing under the warm sun until finally, Claire took Emil's hands in hers once more as twilight began to settle over the horizon. "Emil," she said softly, her expression turning serious yet tender. "It's almost time for me to go." "No," he protested desperately, gripping her hands tighter. "Please don't leave me again." "I must return," Claire said gently but firmly. "But remember what we shared today, hold on to it tightly within your heart." Tears streamed down Emil's face as he fought against the inevitable loss once more, but deep down, he understood that this moment would forever be etched into his soul, a memory that would guide him through life's challenges ahead. "I love you so much," he whispered brokenly. "And I love you," Claire replied softly before leaning down to kiss his forehead, a gesture that felt both familiar and profound. As she stepped back slowly, the warm glow surrounding her began to fade away, but not before leaving behind one last piece of magic, an ethereal light that danced around Emil like fireflies caught in twilight. And then she was gone, leaving behind only echoes of laughter carried on the wind, a reminder that while she may not be physically present, her spirit would always remain intertwined with his own heart forevermore. Emil stood alone in the meadow as darkness fell around him, but instead of feeling lost or afraid, he felt empowered by their connection, ready to embrace life once more while keeping her memory alive within him always. The morning sun broke through the clouds, casting a warm glow over Emil's room as he stirred awake. The events of the previous night felt like a dream, yet the lingering warmth of his mother's presence wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. He sat up slowly, his heart racing with the memory of their time together in the meadow, The laughter, the flowers, and the love that had filled the air. Emile glanced at the crystal pendant resting on his bedside table, its surface still shimmering from the magic of their reunion. He picked it up and held it close to his heart, feeling a renewed sense of hope and purpose. He knew that while his mother could not stay with him physically, her spirit would always be a part of him. After breakfast, Emile decided to take a walk to the meadow where they had spent their magical time together. He felt an irresistible pull to return to that sacred space, hoping to feel her presence once more. As he made his way through the village, he noticed the vibrant colors of autumn, the leaves painted in shades of orange and gold, and felt a sense of gratitude for the beauty surrounding him. When he arrived at the meadow, Emile was greeted by a gentle breeze that rustled through the grass and wildflowers. The air was filled with the sweet scent of blooming blossoms, and for a moment, he closed his eyes and imagined his mother standing beside him, her laughter echoing in the distance. "Mom," he whispered into the wind, feeling a mix of longing and joy. "I'm here." As he walked further into the meadow, Emile noticed something unusual, a faint glow emanating from a cluster of flowers near the old oak tree where they had played. Intrigued, he approached cautiously, his heart pounding with anticipation. To his astonishment, as he drew closer, he saw a shimmering figure materializing among the flowers, a soft light that gradually took shape until it revealed Claire standing before him once more. She looked radiant and alive, her smile warm and inviting. "Emile," she said softly, her voice like music carried on the breeze. "You've come back. I can't believe it," Emile exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. "You're here again." Claire nodded, her expression filled with love. "I wanted to see you again before I returned to my place among the stars." "Can we talk more? Can we play?" Emile asked eagerly, feeling an overwhelming sense of joy at her presence. "Of course," Claire replied gently. "But remember that our time is limited. I want you to cherish every moment." They settled beneath the oak tree where they had shared so many happy memories. Emile felt a sense of peace wash over him as they talked about everything, his schoolwork, his friends, and even his dreams for the future. Claire listened intently, offering encouragement and wisdom that made him feel understood in ways he hadn't thought possible since her passing. "Mom," Emile said after sharing a particularly funny story about Julian's antics at school, "do you ever get sad? I mean, when you're up there." Claire's expression softened as she considered his question. "Sometimes I do miss you," she admitted. "But I also feel immense joy knowing that you are carrying my love with you every day." "But it's so hard without you," Emile confessed, tears welling in his eyes again. "I wish things were different." "I know," Claire said gently as she reached out to wipe away his tears with her fingertips. "But remember that love is powerful, it transcends time and space. You can always feel me near when you hold on to those memories we created together." Emile took a deep breath and nodded slowly, trying to absorb her words. "I want to keep making memories," he said earnestly. "I want to live fully for both of us." "That's all I ever wanted for you," Claire replied, with pride shining in her eyes. "Embrace life with open arms, find joy in every moment, even in sadness." As they continued their conversation beneath the oak tree, Emile felt lighter than air. Each word exchanged felt like a thread weaving their hearts closer together despite distance or time. Suddenly, Claire stood up and gestured toward a patch of wildflowers nearby. "Let's make something beautiful together, just like we did before." With laughter bubbling between them once more, Emile joined her as they picked flowers from around them, daisies and violets, creating crowns adorned with nature's beauty just as they had done during their first magical meeting. As they wove flowers into crowns, Emile felt an overwhelming sense of happiness wash over him. This was what he had longed for, a moment frozen in time where love transcended all boundaries. When their crowns were complete, Claire placed one atop Emile's head again while laughing joyfully at how it suited him perfectly. "You look just like a prince," she teased playfully. "And you're my queen," Emile replied with a grin that lit up his face. They spent what felt like hours playing in the meadow, laughing and dancing under the warm sun until finally Claire took Emile's hands in hers once more as twilight began to settle over the horizon. "Emile," she said softly, her expression turning serious yet tender. "It's almost time for me to go." "No," he protested desperately again, gripping her hands tighter. "Please don't leave me again." "I must return," Claire said gently but firmly. "But remember what we shared today. hold on to it tightly within your heart. Tears streamed down Emil's face as he fought against losing her once more, but deep down, he understood that this moment would forever be etched into his soul, a memory that would guide him through life's challenges ahead. I love you so much, he whispered brokenly. And I love you, Claire replied softly before leaning down to kiss his forehead, a gesture that felt both familiar and profound. As she stepped back slowly, the warm glow surrounding her began to fade away, but not before leaving behind one last piece of magic, an ethereal light that danced around Emil like fireflies caught in twilight. And then she was gone, leaving behind only echoes of laughter carried on the wind, a reminder that while she may not be physically present, her spirit would always remain intertwined with his own heart forevermore. Emil stood alone in the meadow as darkness fell around him, but instead of feeling lost or afraid, he felt empowered by their connection, ready to embrace life once more while keeping her memory alive within him always. The next morning, Emil awoke with a sense of clarity and purpose that he hadn't felt in a long time. The memories of his mother's visits lingered in his heart like a warm embrace, filling him with hope and encouragement. As he sat up in bed, he could still feel the gentle warmth of her presence, the laughter they shared echoing in his mind. Today was different. Today, he would honor her memory by embracing life fully, just as she had encouraged him to do. After breakfast, Emil decided to take a walk through the village. The sun shone brightly overhead, casting a golden light on the cobblestone streets. As he walked, he noticed the vibrant colors of autumn leaves swirling in the breeze, and he took a moment to appreciate the beauty around him. Each step felt lighter, as if the weight of his grief was slowly lifting. As he approached Le Jardin des Fleurs, the small park where he had spent countless afternoons with his mother, Emil felt a surge of emotion. He remembered how they would sit on the benches, surrounded by blooming flowers, sharing stories and dreams. Today, he wanted to create new memories, ones that honored her spirit while allowing him to move forward. When he entered the park, he saw children playing on the swings and families enjoying picnics under the trees. A smile broke across his face as he spotted Julian and Sophie sitting on a blanket nearby. They waved at him enthusiastically. "Emil, come join us," Sophie called out, her voice bright with excitement. Emil hesitated for a moment but then felt a rush of courage. He walked over to them, feeling as though he were stepping into a new chapter of his life, one filled with friendship and connection. "Hey," Julian greeted him with a grin. "We were just talking about you. Want to help us build a fort?" "A fort?" Emil echoed, his curiosity piqued. "Yeah, we're using these blankets and branches," Sophie explained, pointing to their makeshift materials scattered around. "It'll be epic." With a newfound enthusiasm bubbling within him, Emil nodded eagerly. "I'm in." As they worked together to construct the fort, laughter filled the air. Emil felt a sense of camaraderie that had been missing for so long, a feeling of belonging that warmed his heart. They shared stories and jokes as they built their fortress, each moment reinforcing the bonds of friendship that had been waiting patiently for him to return. After finishing their fort, they crawled inside and settled down on the soft grass beneath. The sunlight streamed through the gaps in the blankets, creating a cozy atmosphere that felt safe and inviting. "Okay," Julian said dramatically, "now we need to come up with our secret fort name." "How about the Fortress of Friendship?" Sophie suggested with a giggle. "Or the Kingdom of Fun," Emil chimed in, feeling lighter than air as they brainstormed names together. As they laughed and debated their options, Emil realized how much he had missed this, how much he needed this connection with others. It was as if his mother's spirit was guiding him back toward joy and friendship. Later that afternoon, they decided to have an impromptu picnic right there in their fort. Sophie pulled out sandwiches and snacks from her backpack while Julian entertained them with silly jokes. Emil felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude wash over him. This was what life was about, sharing moments with those you care about. As they munched on their food, Emil couldn't help but share stories about his mother, how she loved to bake cookies or how she would take him on adventures through the countryside. His friends listened intently, laughing at the funny anecdotes while also honoring his memories. "Your mom sounds amazing," Sophie said sincerely after one story. "I wish I could have met her. She would have loved you both," Emil replied warmly, feeling proud to share those cherished memories. As dusk began to settle over Saint Laurent and stars twinkled above them like scattered diamonds, The three friends sat together in comfortable silence for a moment before Julian broke it with excitement. "Let's make lanterns," he suggested suddenly. "We can release them into the sky." Emil's heart raced at the idea. It reminded him of the lantern ceremony they had held in honor of his mother not long ago. "That sounds perfect," he agreed enthusiastically. They gathered materials from around the park, paper lanterns and candles, and set to work creating their glowing masterpieces. As they crafted each lantern together, their laughter echoed through the evening air, a reminder that joy could still exist alongside sorrow. Once their lanterns were ready, they ventured back to the meadow where Emil had shared so many special moments with his mother. The night was clear and calm as they lit each candle inside their lanterns. The soft glow illuminating their faces like tiny stars captured in fragile paper. "Ready?" Sophie asked excitedly as they held their lanterns aloft. With hearts full of hope and friendship, they counted down together. 3, 2, 1. As they released their lanterns into the night sky, the soft light floated upward, carrying their wishes and dreams along with it. Emil watched in awe as each lantern danced among the stars. It felt like sending messages to his mother, a way to keep her spirit alive while embracing all that lay ahead. In that moment, Emil understood that while grief would always be part of him, it no longer defined who he was becoming. Instead, it became woven into the fabric of his life, a reminder that love never truly fades. It transforms into something beautiful, guiding us forward even through our darkest days. As they stood together beneath the starlit sky, Emil smiled brightly at his friends, knowing that every moment spent celebrating life was another step toward healing, and another way to keep his mother's spirit alive within him forevermore. Thank you for following along on this journey.